Good day, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, How to Find a Mentor That Works for You. This webinar is hosted by the International Relations Committee, the Women in Surgery Committee, and the Committee to Advance DEI. My name is Jessie Romans, and I am the Committee Administrator for the ACS. Before we get started, I want to inform everyone that today's webinar will be recorded and will be available for viewing on the ACS YouTube page after the webinar. Additionally, if you have any questions during the webinar, you may submit them through the Q&A box, as there will be a Q&A portion at the end of the webinar. With that, I am happy to introduce you to today's webinar moderator, Dr. Yannis Konstantinidis. Dr. Konstantinidis was born and raised in Greece. He completed medical school in Greece and then moved to the United States. He completed his general surgery internship at Massachusetts General Hospital and his residency at the University of Arizona. He also completed fellowships at Mass Gen and in Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, focusing on pancreatic and hepatobiliary cancers. After completing his surgical oncology fellowship at the City of Hope National Cancer Center, he moved to El Paso, Texas, where he currently practices, focusing on the treatment of gastrointestinal cancers. He joined the International Relations Committee in 2022, and he currently serves as the chair of the International Medical Graduate Subcommittee for the IRC. With that, I'll now turn it over to you, Dr. Konstantinidis.
Thank you very much, Jessie. Jessie is one of the few people that can tell my last name, so thank you for that. Thanks everybody for joining us today for the ACS International Relations Committee webinar on finding a mentor that works for you. This webinar is co-sponsored by the Committee to Advance DEI and the Women in Surgery Committee. Today will be a moderated Q&A discussion with an experienced panel to discuss all things about mentorship. After the moderated discussion, we will have an audience Q&A, during which the panelists will answer audience questions. If you have any questions, please make sure to submit it through the Q&A panel that you see on your screen. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce you to today's panelists. First, I welcome Dr. Jyotis Chauhan. Dr. Chauhan is an associate professor of urology at Oregon Health and Science University in Portland, Oregon. Prior to her career as a physician, she was a hospital pharmacist. Dr. Chauhan completed a fellowship in male urologic reconstruction at Wake Forest Medical Center after urologic residency training at Sunny Downstate Medical Center. She specializes in the management of cisgender male lower urinary tract reconstruction and gender-affirming surgeries. In addition, she's also the OHSU Medical Director of Clinical Documentation and Integrity, which focuses on inpatient documentation and coding. Her clinical research focuses on prescription drug use in urology and gender-affirming surgery outcomes. She is also a member of several professional organizations, including the American Urological Association, the Society of Genitourinary Reconstructive Surgeons, and the American College of Surgeons. Welcome, Dr. Chauhan. Next, I will welcome Dr. Melanie Hughes. Dr. Hughes graduated from Howard University College of Medicine. She completed her general surgery training at Howard and received a Master of Public Health degree in Disaster Management and Emergency Preparedness from Tulane University. She then undertook a research appointment with the World Health Organization Center for Research on the Epidemiology of Disasters in Belgium. After leaving Belgium, she served as a general surgeon with the U.S. Indian Health Service, providing healthcare to the Hopi and Navajo nations in Northwest Arizona. She then spent several years as a private practice surgeon on the island of Guam. Dr. Hughes strives to practice socially conscious general surgery, and upon returning from Guam, she spent the last 5 years as vice chair of surgery at Stony Brook Eastern Long Island Hospital, a critical access hospital in Eastern Long Island, and as director of global surgery with Stony Brook University, working to modernize surgical care in Mozambique. Dr. Hughes is a multi-generational Washingtonian. For her region, she has returned to the DC area and has joined Mid-Atlantic Surgical Group, a private practice group on the eastern shore of Maryland. Welcome, Dr. Hughes. Lastly, I welcome Dr. Ariel Santos. Dr. Santos obtained his medical degree from the University of Santo Tomas in the Philippines, where he also graduated cum laude with a Bachelor of Science degree in biology. He completed his general surgery residency at Jose Reyes Memorial Medical Center in Manila as an administrative chief resident. He then pursued his training in the US at the University of Louisville, redoing his general surgery training, as well as his fellowship in trauma, burn, and surgical critical care. He also earned his master's degree in public health from the same place. He did further training at the University of Toronto. He was the chief of surgery at Labrador Grenfell Health System in Canada and the associate EGS director at Penn State before moving to Texas, where he served as the division chief of acute care surgery at Covenant Medical Center for 7 years. He's the founding director of telemedicine at TTU-HCC School of Medicine and the principal investigator of Texas Louisiana Telehealth Resource Center. Dr. Santos is the current chair-elect of the Society of Critical Care Medicine, Surgery Station, and also an active member of multiple organizations, including the International Relationships Committee of AACS. Dr. Santos is a professor and now the interim chair of the Department of Surgery at Texas Tech University in Lubbock, Texas. With that, I will now begin with our moderated discussion. And I kind of feel, since I am Greek, to explain that the word mentor comes from the Greek mythology. And it was a friend of Odysseus, and Odysseus asked him to guide his son Telemachus when he left home. But unfortunately, Mentor did a bad job, so the goddess Athena disguised herself as Mentor, took his place. And I will start with Dr. Santos, since I introduced you last. And we not all of us have a goddess to be our mentor. So I would ask, in your experience, what are the qualities of a good mentor? How do we select somebody to be a great mentor for us?
Well, it is great to have, Athena as your mentor, the goddess of wisdom, and it will be great. But I think being a mentor, there's a sense of commitment. Being a mentor, you should be able to know who is your mentee. A mentor is a fund of wisdom. However, you don't know everything, right? And so you should be able to put yourself in the shoe of the mentee. You should be able to give some time. I think most importantly, you should have a commitment, a time commitment to your mentee that you are able to allot on. You should be able to discuss. You should be an open mind. You should be the sounding board for your mentee. This is not just telling them what to do. It's not just being a coach. It's being a mentor. A mentor should be able to listen, should have an open mind, and should have a vast experience that should be able to relate to the mentee and to be able to direct what is going on. You're not just directing people or guiding people. You're actually empathizing with them, so you will be able to listen, to everything that they're experiencing, so you could guide them better.
I agree. It's a very deep relationship. Dr. Hughes, how can somebody pick during the early phases of his career, like medical school or residency? How can you select a great mentor?
I actually had a significant amount of challenge initially finding a mentor. So I actually went to Tulane with the thought that I would find a mentor there, and the person I approached was 100% not interested. And so sometimes that will happen, and you have to sort of reset. Thankfully, and Dr. Joan as well, we were both on the women's committee, and it actually was through the American College of Surgeons, actually, and the Association of Women Surgeons, I was able to find a mentor through both of those associations, someone that was assigned to me through a formal program. And it was actually life-changing. All of the worries and concerns I had about making advances or changes in my career, they were able to help guide me to make those decisions without, telling me what to do. This is exactly as Dr. Santos was saying.
Yeah, excellent. I think many organizations, they have the structured mentorship programs, which is an amazing opportunity for us. But I want to pick your brain. What about if there is no such a program and you're early in your career and you know approximately what you want to do? How do you select and how do you approach people to become your mentor? And I'll start this question from Dr. Chauhan.
Well, I think, it really depends on what stage of your medical career you're in terms of how you find a mentor in a more unstructured fashion. I think if we start at the medical student level, there are different types of mentorship relationships. So sometimes it's peer-to-peer. You have other medical students who you look up to in medical school who maybe are a year ahead of you, who could answer your questions and be a more informal mentor. Certainly, I think as a medical student rotates outside of their own institution, having relationships with the residents that you're closely affiliated with creates what we call a near peer mentor relationship, which is still pretty informal, but I think allows you to sort of understand and see on a daily basis what could be there for you at your next step, and ask questions, obviously, when there's time. And then be exposed to attendings who you'll look up to, who create a mentorship relationship, even if maybe you don't match at that program. I think for residents, it's the same thing. You could have other residents be mentors, attendings, and then use your network of attendings to increase your net of people that could act as a mentor. But I think at each level as a mentee, you need to understand what you want out of that relationship so that you can guide yourself and the mentor in terms of what you want or need, and pick the best person. And then I think as an attending, your own circle of attendings within your practice could certainly act as a mentor group, but relying actually on people from the past, so other residents, co-residents who maybe have gone on and entered different practice sites that you may be interested in maybe transitioning to, or old attendings. Using networks from, I'll call it the past, can be a great way in an unstructured fashion to find people who can help sort of guide you into the future.
I want to pick the brains of all of the panelists on this question. Dr. Santos, you have done a lot of work in acute care surgery trauma. In the early phases of your career, you were looking who are the trauma guys in your program that had a great academic career or had a great reputation. How did you approach them and try to establish a mentor a relationship? And I think Dr. Chody mentioned a key word, a network of mentors. Did you try to have multiple mentors from the beginning, or somebody who was the most important trauma person in your program?
Well, definitely, I will just start with, mentorship is being encouraged. I think it will help you with your personal development as well as in your career. It will help to achieve your career goals and help you identify and correct gaps in generic skills and knowledge. And I have mentors all over the years in this stage of my career, and there's no, shame in that. I think we had to find, as Dr. Chuhan mentioned, you could actually see it while doing your residency. For instance, during my residency, I had, Glenn Franklin, Haram Polk, and the late Dr. Richardson mentoring me. It's kind of sometimes hard to approach them. They're excellent trauma surgeons. And the thing, though, is you have to tell them, your interests. Be explicit to them that I want you to be, I want you to be my mentor. I want you to guide me. And some of them are busy to the point that, well, they could give you a lot of time, and that's okay. And it's okay to, have more than one mentor, because sometimes you want to pick their brain on their specialty. Like, for instance, Dr. Richardson had some other interests as well, like manuscript writing, doing research. I just don't want to be just a trauma surgeon. I want to write manuscript as well and be involved in organization. And Dr. Richardson and the rest of my mentors were able to open doors for me and actually connect me to other network of mentors. So it's okay to have more than one mentor. This is not an exclusive one-on-one. That's why it's called mentors, mentorship. And even when I was a fellow, I still have mentors during my fellowship. And even now, I still have mentors. So there's no shame in that. I have Dr. Zackerson and Dr. Sutton, the current president-elect, mentoring me up to now. They are my sounding board and everything. So your organization, the American College of Surgeons, East SCCM, AAST, in trauma world, have mentorship program. And we even have, during our Congress or our meetings, we even have programs wherein students, medical students and residents and fellows could just walk in and do mentorship. And the same with other organizations, for women and the Society for Black Surgeons, they have mentorship programs. So I think there's wherever your society is, I'm pretty sure there's mentorship in the program built in.
Yeah, all these are excellent points, and it shows how important it is to be involved in societies. Dr. Hughes, I want to ask you the same question, and how do you monitor the success of the mentorship relation? And if it doesn't go well, what do you do?
I think not that sometimes things happen where it doesn't go well, which has happened more than once for me. As I said, this a thing I had in Tulane where the person was clearly too busy and not interested. Actually, even with the formal programs, when I first got assigned to WISC to the mentorship program, my initial mentor, she had a big career change and life change, and she actually ended up not being able to interface with me. Like, she wouldn't contact me, she wouldn't call back. I was blessed to end up with Sherry Wren from Stanford, and she's been instrumental in making a difference. And she doesn't, she's not hounding me always, but maybe every couple of years I will talk to her and I'll make a pivot in my career based on the things that I want to do in global surgery. And exactly as Dr. Santos was saying, you have to share your interests both in your career path and then also what you want from the mentor. And then more recently, actually, coming to Stony Brook, I had no interest and no desire to do academic medicine. And so I've always been in private practice or in very rural areas. And so it was a big change for me. And I actually ended up with a mentor, Dr. Rory Pryor, but without me realizing it. She had, in retrospect, I can see that she had picked me up and was guiding me and mentoring me in that path. Also, you will have people from other specialties and non-surgeons helping you. So in that case, I had an anesthesiologist at Stony Brook really guide me on that academic path. And I was able within my first year to set myself up to advance my professor level based on his recommendations for, how to approach things. And then when I worked with the WHO, I had, the head of our center there. She's not a surgeon. She's a epidemiologist and pathologist. And so she was able to just guide me to other surgeons and other people around the world that were doing similar work. So that you'll be surprised at the ways you can find out. And if you feel like you're not getting a hold of your mentor or what you need is not being met for where you are in your career, then sometimes you do need a new one.
Dr. Constantinides, I would just like to add, pivot, I think is the word, that Dr. Hughes mentioned. As a mentee, I think you must develop a timeline. If the timeline is not being met, probably you have to start rethinking, and you should have a constant communication and checking if you're meeting the goals that you set for yourself, and these should be collaborated with your mentor. And I knew some research mentors, sometimes they will not answer emails, they will not be in the meeting, they will not show up. I know they are busy, but I think if they're not meeting the goals and the communication is not being met, the pivoting to the next step, is not a bad idea at all.
Yeah, these are all excellent points, and I will tell you, as a person who I have mentored a lot of surgery residents at Texas Tech, but when I had to mentor also medical students that want to do something different, like dermatology, it actually helped me get some skills that I didn't have. I had to reach out to friends to understand better the field. And actually, when these people that you mentor have success and they get back to you and they thank you, that's one of the most wonderful feelings in your career as a surgeon. But I want to ask a practical question. Let's say you're early in your career and you want to approach somebody to be your mentor. Obviously, it's a little uncomfortable to just shoot an email to the person and ask him or her to be your mentor. So how do you approach? Do you try to get involved with that person in some sort of research project? How do you build that relationship? Because it is something that builds over time. So I would like to start with Dr. Chauhan about this question. Any advice to young people that they want to approach mentors?
I think early in your career, there are so many factors that are making life more stressful in those early years than I think we can all say in our mid and late careers, that it can seem overwhelming to add one more thing on, which is to find a mentor in an informal way. But I think depending on your practice setting, I always tell our residents that it helps to obviously join a collegial group of physicians, but also realize that, you know, surgically, you're not as efficient and proficient as you will be in 5 or 10 years. So doing a case with someone, you know, is a great way to start a relationship that could lead to a mentorship. You know, difficult cases, you know, across our career, sometimes we need help, right? Other surgical services within the same specialty. I'm certainly not proud enough to think I can do every case on my own. And I think that really fosters a way to be in front of someone, collaborate together surgically, even have moments of time where maybe you get to know each other a little better. And I think that segues into trying to see if that person has a relationship maybe that might mesh with yours, and try to better understand their experience level, and potentially past mentorship relationships to see if that may be someone that you would want to sort of interact with more. I also think as an early attending, meals are really nice, you know, just asking someone, you know, if you're in between cases together, do you want to grab a meal and get to know someone? It's more organic, I think, when you become a junior attending, to just sort of, when life is really busy and you're still learning the ropes, to just sort of find pockets of time to meet people where you feel like you have the bandwidth for and they have the bandwidth for, and then go from there. But I also think it takes some personal searching as a mentee to again ask yourself, what questions do you feel like you need help with your career at this moment, and how much commitment and time do you feel like you would have to this relationship before you find someone? You have to sort of understand what you want yourself.
Yeah, excellent points. And I'm going to ask the same question to the other two panelists. Dr. Santos, obviously you're an institution that I'm sure a lot of people approach you to be their mentor. Do they come to your cases, or do they just shoot you an email and after a brief introduction, they ask to do a research project with you? Obviously, somebody is much more interested in being a mentor when you show some potential to the person. For example, you go to the OR prepared, or you want to do a research project, so somebody can assess that you're really a bright person. But I wonder, what is your experience, Dr. Santos, on
Well,
that?
my experience is all of the above. You know, some of them will just email me. Some of them will just, you know, I'm rounding and just introduce themselves, you know. But my advice, though, to students, residents, show interest and enthusiasm. Then be brave when opportunity comes and make a request to be mentored. I do remember there was this student who I interviewed for med school and eventually got accepted. Then she introduced herself again to me during the ACS meeting, says, I want you to please mentor me. And she volunteered to shadow. She asked me to be part of, you know, some of my research. And what endeared her to me is that she's willing to put a lot of work, to the point that I told her, this is Saturday, this is your off day, go home. And says, no, I want to spend this with you. This is my only opportunity to have spent it with you. So she will be shadowing me. She will be assisting me in the OR. And I learned enough about her and saw her good qualities that she finally asked me again to be, you know, formal mentor. And I said yes to her without any hesitation. So the short answer is, I think you should show enthusiasm, then put your best forward, communicate your intention well, and show your willingness, that you will willing to work hard to learn from the experience, skill, and knowledge of the senior surgeon you wish to mentor. And this, you know, resident now is in Houston doing her, you know, residency. So these are also the thing that why I would want to do mentorship is, as a mentor, this is just you know, self-fulfilling in a way. You know, it's just like MasterCard, you know, it's priceless, right? So this is the reason why we do what we do.
Yeah, excellent points. And I'll tell you, I keep all of these letters that people send you after they have succeeded, and usually they send you small. I keep all of these along with my patients. I might lose my degree or something, but these letters, I cherish them. Dr. Hughes, anything to add on that?
I mean, the main thing is that in some cases, I think people are very shy
Yeah.
And this can be a problem. I think I would say when I was younger was very shy. I will not say that about myself now, but and so sometimes it may need a more formal approach. So I don't know if email is necessarily appropriate, but email can be a way that you can set up a meeting or time to formally meet with someone, especially some of the more we have some of us attendings are more formal, a little bit more distant. We're super busy. Some of them are very renowned and it's very difficult to get time with them. And in those cases, if you're interested in, and as exactly as Santos said, you're willing to put in work, I think sometimes emailing to set up an appointment, I don't think emailing to ask, can you be my mentor necessarily is the right approach unless you know the person pretty well. But I think setting up a meeting with them, if you can't catch them informally, in the hallway, as Dr. Chauhan said, I think that is a way that I have had people email me and then I can meet with them and say, okay, this is going to work or not going to work.
Can I add one more thing? The newer, I'll call the newer generation of medical students and residents are using, which I think I sometimes forget as someone who isn't on this platform, is social media. So certainly we have mentorship relationships that aren't within our institution, right? We have what allows us now through Zoom and other platforms is mentorship from a distance, which I think is really great and makes mentorship most likely more accessible, especially to groups that don't have maybe access to academic institutions or maybe, let's say, a urology residency within their home institution. So I do know that several medical students, look for potential physicians that they want to contact on X or other platforms and message them saying, I see, you recently published this item. I'm really interested in urology. Do you have any research right now that you could, that I could collaborate with you on from a distance? And I think that's become a more informal way to develop long distance mentorship relationships that we shouldn't forget about. And I think is probably a really nice way that we didn't have many years ago, most likely when we all trained to be able to access really amazing individuals across the country or across the world.
And I agree with you because I think the majority, at least half of my mentees right now are not local. They live in other parts of the country. So it's essential that you reach out.
Thank you all for this riveting discussion. We will now move into the Q&A section of the webinar. And actually, one of the questions in the Q&A was relevant to the last, to this very last thing of the online mentors, the pros and cons of online mentors. And I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate. I always prefer to meet in person and get this nice warm personal relationship with mentors. So, Dr. Santos, what do you think are the negatives of having an online mentor?
Well, there's still a beauty on being in person, however, for some instances, just like what Dr. Chauhan mentioned and Dr. Hughes as well, telementoring is not a bad thing because sometimes I have, mentees from Ethiopia, from the Philippines, even Nepal and India. And so that's the only, a practical way to do the mentorship. And most of the things could be done, through telementoring. And even with Dr. Sutton, most of the time we just do Zoom or over the phone. And this is the only way we could do things. However, during meetings, we try to meet each other because sometimes there's nothing like, meeting each other face to face. I think there will be more depth, being there. They will understand you better because sometimes there are body language that you cannot really see, an expression that it's hard to decipher using the modern technology. But telementoring is a cheap, practical form, in a lot of cases.
Very nice. One question from Nepal. Very nice. Is there a mentorship module embedded in U.S. surgery residency programs? How does mentor-mentee model work in U.S. surgical training? In my experience, it heavily depends on the program. When I was at Tech, we had a mentorship from the beginning, and kind of the residents were deciding based on, okay, do I want to do surgical oncology? Do I want to do trauma? and how much I want to be an academic versus a community surgeon. These were pretty much some of the criteria to try to select your mentor. But I want to ask about the programs that you're coming from, if there's a formal mentorship, and with what criteria, Dr. Chauhan?
So we actually have a formal mentorship program, which I think is really wonderful. And I did not come from a program that had that, but each resident has an assigned urologist within our department who will be their mentor across their 5 years of training. And it used to be a minimum of meeting once a year, which I think obviously maybe formally that works to at least touch base once and informally see each other across the year, but we've moved to a quarterly model most recently, which to me I think helps again when you have maybe a resident that's more shy, who feels less confident in reaching out and saying I'd like to sort of have more than just, you know, meeting in the operating room or meeting in the clinic. It does allow a more formal touch base that doesn't put the onus back on the resident to create. And I think really the goal of each quarterly meeting is to really just assess, again, what they're looking for, what questions can we provide guidance on, what do they want us to help them keep tabs on as in terms of their growth, and then you know, looking forward to the next meeting. So I'm looking forward to this new model personally, from the yearly to the quarterly, and I like the longitudinal relationship over the course of the residency life as well.
Excellent. Dr. Hughes?
So, you know, right now I'm in private practice, but the hospital I operate with does have a residency. But I think that I haven't ever been in a place that had a formal mentorship program, and I actually think it's needed. I think it's important that people understand that, you know, young surgeons and residents, they're confused. You know, we're shy. We're not confident 100% in everything that we're doing. And I spend more time mentoring people, you know, hey, you have all of the basic skills, you know, not to put the coker on the bowel, you know, how to sew to stop bleeding. These things are what going to take you into the next 10 years of your career, but someone needs to say that. And people need to feel that and that comfort. And sometimes for me, I do more mentorship related to operative skills and networking your practice and these types of things. And I think that it's essential that you meet, as Jyoti said, that you meet multiple times a year. I also agree with monthly or quarterly at the latest get-togethers for mentees and mentors.
I think most of the surgery residency program in the US have, you know, mentorship, because we understand and we know the value of mentorship. In our institution, we have both formal and informal mentorship. You know, you could just select who you want to, you know, mentor you, and usually it depends on what specialty the residents wants to pursue. You know, eventually, most of the time they're going to CT surgery. They're wanting a mentorship from CT surgeons, of course, because the reason is, you know, eventually you will probably want to have letters from CT surgeons or plastic surgeons, depending on what specialty you want to go into. But I agree with you, with Dr. Hughes as well, that sometimes, you know, there are shy residents that without the formal structured mentorship, that they will not really seek out, you know, actively. And so this eventually help them structure their, you know, career plans in a way with the help of the institution. And we also have mentorship as well for even faculty. You know, peer-to-peer, you know, mentorship is being encouraged. We even have an agreement, a formal mentorship agreement between faculty, that you have to meet at least this much of a day, this much every quarter or every month, depending on what you agreed upon.
Excellent. We have many questions in the Q&A. We're not going to be able to reach all of them. However, let's talk about maintaining the connection with a mentor. We have a question. It's difficult to follow up after initial conversations, to be honest. Should I set up monthly meetings or give monthly updates? Personally, I think it's a very important point to maintain your relationship with your mentors. I always try to make time every few months to talk with mentors especially from fellowship, give them an update where I am, and sometimes you get ideas that you wouldn't expect that the person is going to give you. So super important. So Dr. Chauhan, how do you maintain the connection with a mentor?
I think it's tricky, and a lot of it comes down to a little bit of the agreement or the expectation that you said at the beginning in terms of how frequently you want to meet. I think if the mentee has an unspoken expectation that I'd like to meet monthly, but never says that, and then tries to reach out every month to meet and maybe meets resistance, or, you know, I have to cancel at the last minute, it's because the mentor didn't have the same expectation and doesn't currently maybe have the bandwidth to meet that expectation. So it's best for both parties to sort of set a cadence that they both feel like they can commit to. I think it goes back to Dr. Santos's initial statement at the beginning, which is mentorship does rely on commitment to some extent, to sort of make that happen, and then have the mentee keep that cadence once it's agreed upon, either through updates or setting up a time.
Then I would say that also, for instance, during Thanksgiving, write them a card or text them Happy Thanksgiving. I'm doing great, by the way. If you are in a meeting, make sure after you talk, pass by and say, hi, this is a new update. And it depends on, as Dr. Chauhan mentioned, if there is a formal expectations that you have to meet monthly, that so be it. However, just to get connected with them, sometimes, just send them a text message or an email, I think should be sufficient.
Yeah, and for me, I actually tend to schedule all of my meetings at the time when we have the current meeting. So if I'm meeting with someone, I don't let them come off the call typically for the talk without giving them another date. So then that way, if they have to cancel or I have to cancel, then we just schedule another date and it's already set. And then it will be a month away, maybe 3 months away. But you can also put that in your calendar, and, for your administrative executives, assistant or whoever, to put it in your calendar, and then it's easier to keep up, especially if you have multiple mentees.
Excellent. And it's one of the reasons that everybody should attend the American College of Surgeons meeting, because it's the best place to find mentors. And you're gonna run into mentors you had from residency, because everybody goes there. So this is a very important point for the meetings. A lot of questions are about how can IMGs get a mentor in the US. And since I am from the National Medical Graduate Subcommittee, I have to ask this one. I personally get a lot of questions, emails from people from my country, from Greece, and I typically do a Zoom meeting for them after I review their CV and their goals. And I try to understand how specific goals they have in mind and what is their understanding in order to mentor them. But I wonder, what is your experience with IMGs asking you to be your mentor, their mentor? Dr. Chauhan?
I personally don't have a lot of experience. I have received some emails, but I must admit they've primarily been specifically research-based, and they've come at times where I may be at a lull in my research, and so I don't have anything substantial that could be done remotely. But I think while research is definitely important and helps on a surgical residency application, there are other mentorship opportunities outside of research that I think US-based and foreign-based medical students can benefit from. So I just haven't received any non-research mentorship requests personally.
Well, and research is always a very good first step to establish a long-lasting relationship, because you can keep doing research with somebody even after you advance in your career. There is always opportunities. Dr. Santos, IMGs and US-based mentors.
I actually have a lot of requests, and sometimes you will
I'm
really
sure.
sometimes. So I told them, you have to be very patient for me, because sometimes I'm busy, very busy clinically and in in the office as well. So most of the time I will receive email, actually, usually very early in the morning, and so I will usually try to answer all their emails. Then, if necessary, we do Zoom as well. We schedule Zoom meeting. And sometimes we could even do it together, because sometimes it's the same questions, though. So sometimes what you do is you bunch them in together. So there will be sometimes, the wisdom of the crowd that, they belong in the same institution. I think that will be logistically better. And there are some resources. And as you know, the American College of Surgeons is putting up, some resources eventually that could potentially help them, because most of them are essentially an FAQ, a frequently, asked question. And so whenever I go to the Philippine College of Surgeons, the equivalent of the ACS, I usually get more, requests for mentorship. And I think we just have to, really be very patient. They're really wanting and needing some help. So we have to, sacrifice a little bit, making sure that we answer their questions. So I'm so glad I was able to be in the capacity to able to help this group of young surgeons.
Excellent. Dr. Hughes, any experience with IMGs?
Oh, so much, because I do so much in global surgery.
Yeah.
And I'm with Dr. Santos. I agree. So I do encourage people to be patient, but that, if you email me, and I get a lot of requests like on LinkedIn and on social media as well, just as Dr. Chohan is saying. And so I do respond to those. And typically if I can't help the person, or we can't have this Zoom meeting, and if it looks like it's not going to fit or work, I actually do in some cases try to send them to someone else who I think could fit what they need better. So at least that's something that we can do. If you have the bandwidth and time to do it, I would encourage you to do go ahead and email people and contact people in the places or the specialties that you want to pursue.
Excellent. I think that's very kind of you doing that. I try to do something similar. In the same topic, I see a message from an Egyptian doctor, and he says, I have sent many emails to different doctors in several universities in America, but have no response. And this is a email many times, unfortunately, when somebody doesn't know you beforehand, is not the best place to start. So you have to get your opportunities wherever you can in order to sign. For example, you learn that Dr. Santos operates on Saturdays, and you can go to his OR on a Saturday. But that's an important point. We all receive a lot of emails, and it's very difficult to respond to all of them. And I understand international medical graduates there is the distance problem. How about involvement with a local ACS chapter? How much does this help you think, with regards to getting mentors?
I mean, I think also looking at, depending on where they are, like he was saying with the Philippine College of Surgeons, WACS and COSEXA are very important things if you're in parts of Africa. So I think going to those local meetings, and you can reach US surgeons there if you're looking for a US career, or someone else that may mentor you locally and help you be successful where you are. And then with the resources that you have is also super important.
Yeah, I do remember participating at Hope, and we went to Hawassa University, and I end up, having 3 mentees that I have to, mentor. So I think you just have to be brave, and you have to be patient as well, because sometimes, those emails you sent goes to spam sometimes. I don't know in your institution, but if they are not recognized, they go quickly to spam. And if you don't, look at it regularly, they might get lost. So don't take that as a rejection. Sometimes you just have to be persistent, patience.
Exactly. Dr. Chohan, any comment on that?
I was really thinking as I was hearing Dr. Santos and Hughes speaking, that I wanted to normalize the experience of sending emails and not hearing a response. And this is not a foreign medical student issue. When I was looking for jobs, there's lots of different ways to look for jobs. And I would sort of, instead of cold call, cold email places and not get a response. And so I just, again, want to normalize and say that we all have our challenges with email. It's definitely not a foreign versus US based thing. I think there's plenty of times, everyone's nodding, that we've all sent emails to people and places for mentorship experience, for jobs, whatever it may be, and not heard back. So persistence, I think, and also maybe thinking outside the box, like Dr. Constantinides said, about, what other more local avenues could I choose that could still create opportunities for me. There are a lot of foreign doctors who train in America and go back to their country to practice, and who can give you great advice as to what helped them in their application to come to the US and train, and what was their decision to go back, right, versus stay in the US. So don't always feel like we as US-based surgeons, are the only ones to help. I think there's a lot of people probably close to where you live that could also provide some really useful advice.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I'll tell you, when I was a medical student, I met somebody who was trained in the US, and he came back to Greece, and he was a lovely mentor for me to understand how I have to move for the next few years. And I still call him, or when I go to Greece, we have a coffee together, and it's a long-lasting mentorship relationship. I want to touch. I see a question from an international medical graduate who is doing lab work, and he feels stuck with the current mentor and lack connections with other physicians outside of my lab. And he's concerned, he or she, concerned that about making my current mentor feel bad if I approach others. So what do you guys think about that? I mean, I don't think that approaching multiple people harms in any way current mentorship relationship that you have with somebody, but some people feel that they're a little afraid of that. Dr. Hughes?
Yeah, I know. I'm with you that like you can't feel bad about approaching, because even right now, I think I have 3 different mentors, related to my career. So you should have multiple. And then if you're in a lab and you're doing research that you like, or in an area of interest that you like, one way to get around that is to start reading articles and look at who's authoring those articles. Email those people. Look with, especially if it's a local or journal within your country, or a national or world journal. Those are people that you can approach if you want to find a way to get unstuck but stay in the field without, sort of insulting people. If you say, hey, I emailed this person. I actually got a research position at the WHO by randomly emailing an author from a from a journal article. So you just never know what will come of these things.
Yeah, my suggestion is don't feel bad. Don't feel bad on reaching out to other people. And the mentors themselves should not feel bad that, your mentee is seeking out to reach. You had to expect that, this is not mutually exclusive one-on-one. You just like being friends. We're best friends, but I could have other friends too, right?
Right. And some people have connections and renowned and things that you may not have. And I don't feel guilty about the fact that, Dr. Constantinitis is a giant and I'm a minnow.
But Dr. Sohan, anything to add on that?
I don't think so. I think those are great answers. If you're feeling like it's awkward to transition away from a mentorship, I think just sending an email or in person saying, I feel like the next best step for me is XYZ, and this has been such a valuable experience, and I'd love for us to continue, a mentorship relationship that's just different than how it looks now. But for now, I need to, continue to seek other opportunities, which is, I think, what we all do over the course of our lives, continue to seek and opportunities and grow. And I think that helps sort of maybe lessen the fact that you're transitioning maybe from one relationship to another.
It's absolutely the case. And actually, I have to say, as we go back to talking about mentors that don't work, my initial, like I said, assignment from the WISC committee when I first started, it didn't work. And I felt really guilty about contacting WISC or contacting someone else to let them know, hey, this person is not responding. And so when I did, though, it was so rewarding because I ended up with Dr. Wren, and it was life-changing. My whole life changed based on me being brave enough to take that step.
I have a question that is directed to Dr. Chauhan. You mentioned that there are other mentorship areas to leverage on outside of research. Please, can you provide clarity on what these areas are?
Yeah, of course. So again, it depends on what stage of your career you're on, what other mentorship relationships you might have. But, there are several types of questions and areas that I think are pretty common. Again, it just depends on what stage. So how can I write my best personal statement, right? Or what other things other than research are residency programs looking for? For residents, it could be, should I go and do a fellowship, or should I go straight into private practice? I think when you become an attending, or even as a resident, how do I family plan? When is the best time to family plan? Though that's another common question that I think is common. I don't feel like this job is right, but I get scared about transitioning to another job, and how do I know that one will be better than the one I'm in now? There are so many points and opportunities for mentorship. In the early stages as you're trying to get into a program, I think there's more than research that creates a holistic application. And trying to better understand that and seek out mentors who can help you with that is still valuable.
Very
So
nice.
good. And even for leadership pushing, like for me, when I became a chief of surgery and took on that role, that was very intimidating for me. Now, once I did it, I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. But approaching it, I was very intimidated.
Okay, this has been an amazing webinar. I would like to hear some closing remarks from you guys. I'll start with Dr. Santos. Did you want to add something?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much again for putting this webinar together. Thank you, Jesse, and everyone involved. I think mentorship is very important. We should take advantage of this, way of, having a relationship with, professionally, to further your career. And my suggestion too is once you have a mentor, and eventually I would like you to make sure you pay it forward, because being a mentor as well is very gratifying, personally. And as you could see, as they grow professionally, you could actually feel that, you did your job and our future is secured. So pay it forward once you become graduated from mentorship. By the way, you cannot graduate from mentorship even though you're 50, 60, 70 years old. There's really room for learning. I think there's still something to learn. Right now, I'm actually learning on robotics. So I'm being mentored by younger folks, to do robotic surgery. So let's not be ashamed.
I'm happy to mentor you. I'm happy to mentor you.
Sounds good.
I'm coming too.
I actually did some
I'll be
6
excited
cases
to see
already.
both of
So
y'all.
yes. So, let's normalize this professional relationship. And sometimes the mentorship can go beyond, mentorship. It can go to sponsorship. It could open doors for us, things that are usually shut, especially for international medical graduates and other minorities.
Excellent. Dr. Hughes, any closing remarks that you would like to share with us?
I mean, the most important thing is that I think that no matter how shy or how bold you are, everyone you need a mentor, and it's all parts of your life, not just, I mean, I have a coach for, I have an existential coach to talk about, my life thoughts, and I have, another one to talk about my family stuff. So this is having a mentor and being guided to help optimize and make you your best self in all parts of your life is important. And so I'm really glad that everyone was able to join. And I agree with Dr. Santos. Thank you, Jesse, and the ACS team for setting this up.
Excellent. And again, you have to be resourceful, not one size fits all. You're going to meet people even in circumstances that you don't expect, and you never underestimate. Not everything happens through an email or through an association, even though these are pathways that a lot of people use. But you have to take every opportunity that presents. You have to be also resourceful, persistent, and show potential, because everybody is much more interested to mentor somebody who shows some potentials, who shows some signs of good work. Dr. Chauhan, any last comments?
It's hard to follow Dr. Santos and Dr. Hughes. I'll just echo everything they said. Mentorship there are many studies published that show that people want mentorship, but we're clearly not at meeting that need. And so certainly it's a two-way road where mentees need to, be bold, but we as mentors also need to create the time, even when we feel like maybe our bandwidth is sort of tight, to meet the need that clearly exists, and being resourceful and creative and thinking outside the box. Not taking any meeting or interaction for granted, I think is really paramount.
Yeah, I agree. You guys are amazing. It was fun talking with you this morning. So thank you to all of our panelists for participating in today's discussion. I will now turn it over to the boss, to Jesse, for the final announcements.
Thank you to our moderator and panelists for today's discussion. I can echo that I think that this was very fruitful, and I hope that everyone on was able to learn something today. And like I mentioned at the beginning, this whole webinar is recorded and the discussion will be posted on the ACS YouTube page in the coming days. You will also view any of our past webinars on the ACS YouTube page under the Global Surgery playlist. I would also like to highlight that residents this year, our residents can become members of the American College of Surgeons for free and make use of all of the resources that were mentioned on today's webinar. Lastly, if you have any questions or feedback on this presentation or any future ideas for webinars, please contact me or any of the IRC staff. The information is on the screen. With that, once again, I'd like to give a great big thank you to all of those that were able to participate and attend today's webinar, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.